Hello, everybody. How is everyone doing? We got to check here for the audio. Let's see here. Make sure our audio is good. Can everybody hear? Yes, our audio is good. How's everyone doing? You guys thought the Zohran story was over. Well, you were wrong. It had just begun, as I said. As I said yesterday, get ready for the craziest. My name is Leo. Please like and subscribe. How's everyone doing tonight? I hope everyone's having a great night. I hope everyone's having a great night. All right. You guys had your celebrations? You guys were happy with your Zohran pick? All right. Well, now it's time, because on this channel, we do value-free analysis, okay? We're trying to understand what's actually going on. So, all you Zohran fans, I don't mean this in a negative way. I just mean this, you got to get ready here. So, we're about to enter uncomfortable areas because he's under attack, and he will continue to be under attack insanely. Sorry about that. We're checking the audio. Insanely for the rest of this election, if he can win it. So we're about to enter the pain zone.
Welcome to the pain zone. It's where we live.
Accept the pain. Smile at the pain. Embrace the pain.
You need to love pain.
Pain is the only way to change.
Keep driving through the goddamn pain. Muscle through the pain.
Just shut up and let me enjoy this pain.
Pain is there to ask you one simple question. Do you really want to achieve your goals? Or are you just a talker?
Cringe motivation montage. But I need you, if you're a Zohran fan specifically, you need to embrace this pain zone we are in, because this has just started, man. This race has just begun. And the attacks, oh, they're great. We got an attack from the president today, which is going to matter. So let's start here with our first attack from Eric Adams himself, the most viable opposition, I believe. Before we look at it, let's look at our betting odds. Now we have to look at who's going to win the election. So it's going to be a little more interesting. Right now, you're sitting at a comfortable 73%, everyone. But Eric Adams is there at 23. All right. And there's time, and he has time on his side. And we're going to see why that is, because we have some great clips today to analyze who can take this.
So if you're just waking up, in a stunning development, Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani declares victory as the Democratic nominee for New York City mayor. Disgraced ex-governor Cuomo calling him to concede without ruling out an independent ticket run in November. Watch.
I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City. And it's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism.
Tonight was not our night. Tonight was Assemblyman Mamdani's night. I called him, I congratulated him.
So, joining us now is New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is running, even though he got elected as a...
This is your competition. At the moment, a fifth chance, over a fifth on Polymarket. Very, very dangerous for you Zohran heads. So let's see. Let's see what he said.
Democrat. He's running for re-election as an independent. For your first response to that stunning news, Governor Cuomo is not going to be Mayor Cuomo.
Well, first, it's not stunning to me, and I was very clear. And I'm still a Democrat. I'm running on an independent line, which the policy in the law allows me to do. You had one candidate that was running away from his record. You had another candidate with no record, and you have Eric Adams with a record. I delivered for the city. And we're not
the best positioned man to win this race if we're going by those standards. If we're going by the Hillary Clinton 2016 standards, this is the man who should theoretically win if voters care about experience, real experience. All right. This is what should happen. I'm not saying it's what I want. It's value free. Remember, if you're feeling mad at me, remember, we're in the pain zone. Zohran supporters, get your hats on, because this is the stuff of how you can win. I can give you a partial roadmap, but it's going to be hard, okay? Audio Vibe says, Mamdani's got this. I believe in him. Well, belief and reality must coincide for you to get what you want, Audio, and that's going to be difficult. So let's see these attacks that they've started on him, starting with Eric Adams.
Going backwards. We're not going into a place where we want to defund the police, don't invest in jobs, where we believe we can make broken promises that we can't deliver. I delivered on every promise I gave to
Mr. Mayor, it's not just defund the police. This candidate, Democratic Socialist, he wants to freeze the rent. He wants city-run grocery stores.
Very important. He went on Fox News, everyone, the most watched news channel. Doesn't matter if they're right or left. It's the most watched news channel in the world. Well, in America, I think, not the world. The most important one in this country at the moment.
Social workers to replace the police, because that's going to help. He wants $60 billion of debt fund for affordable housing. He wants free buses, no cost for childcare, baby baskets for newborn, and a $30 minimum wage. How can someone vote for this?
He's a snake oil salesman. Mm-hmm. He will say and do anything to get elected. Think about this for a moment. He wants to raise 1%. He wants to raise tax on 1% of New York's high-income earners. As the mayor, you don't have the authority to do that. You know who has the authority to do that? An assemblyman, which he is.
This is one of the issues that one of our chatters, I Hate Everything, has consistently brought up, which is that he will not have the authority to deliver on this. And this is something where he will have to reframe this in a way that he can do it, that it is achievable. We are now in a real election. It is no longer an election of vibes, of good publicity. It is one of results.
He wants to do free buses. He could have done it at assemblyman. He doesn't understand the power of government and how...
Power. Key word. We're focused on power and what's achievable on this channel. And Eric Adams got his head screwed on right, because he's mentioning that specifically, which is painting Zohran as a man who does not understand the power he will have. Very effective attack, and not racist, which you'd expect, which there have been some, but these serious attacks have been on the economic stuff.
You must making sure you improve your economy, raise the standard of living, and this is what we've done in the city. And I'm looking forward to being on the campaign trail and showing New Yorkers we can't go backwards. And New Yorkers never surrender or quit. I'm never going to quit for the city that I love.
That is so interesting. You're in the position, so you know you don't have the authority to do that. Yet he's running on all these promises he's not going to be able to fulfill. And New Yorkers are buying it. Now, Cuomo did say he hasn't ruled out whether or not he's going to run as an independent, which means he would be on your ticket. He would run against you. How would that affect your race in the field?
Notable that Curtis Silva's not on here. What we can infer from this is that Eric Adams, with his relationship with Donald Trump, has taken on the establishment right wing in this country, and has used them effectively and will continue to rely on them, which is very intelligent. Very intelligent.
This over and over again.
Because Curtis Silva does not have access to this, and even if he did, it's a mess. He can't get anything done. But Eric Adams is someone who can speak as a liberal in his mind, it's fine, to the Trump supporter. And having Fox News blasting you all the way to the election is a lot better than having, I don't even know who Zoran's going to have on his side. It's going to be very difficult. I don't even think MSNBC is going to be on his side here.
But know me
outside of the internet, it's going to be tough.
I'm saying three things: stay focused, no distractions, and grind. That's what everyday New Yorkers do. I'm a working class man. I'm probably the first working class union card carrying man in the history of this city. Andrew at this time should realize that the time has moved on. He just did not bring the energy of wanting to be mayor. And New Yorkers, they have this...
Now that's important. That's important because Cuomo is going to be a split ticket if he comes on there, meaning that he is going to take away from people who would have voted for Adams otherwise. That's why I have seen some people advising Cuomo to drop out and throw his hat behind Adams. They've also said this for Silva. Audio Vibe says he's going to be on NBC tonight. Who? Zohran?
Test. They know, do you want the job? You can't come out on weekends, go to a black church, go eat fried chicken, and all of a sudden saying that I have the black vote, I have the working class people vote. It's just not the reality. People know if you want the job. He didn't want the job.
What has your phone been like since Mamdani won, who's a BDS guy? He is anti-Semitic. He's anti-Israel. He's going to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu if he comes to city.
Tough attacks. Tough attacks. The anti-Semitic result, it seems like it's going to play a bigger role in the general. It seems like it's going to play a big role in the general. We're going to see more clips that tackle that. NMSO5 says, Mamdani is America first, Cuomo is America last. Absolutely. Cuomo is garbage. And that's why I don't think he's relevant outside of if he does run, it's going to be bad for Eric Adams. Zohran's going to be on NBC. Send that link when he's on.
So now, all of a sudden, Eric Adams, you might be the only thing to stop, along with Curtis Sliwa, him from becoming the next mayor. What has it been like since the results have basically been all but official?
Of a lot of communications. I think I slept an hour and a half because the phone was going off all night. People understand this moment.
Coming back to you?
In a combination, a lot of people didn't leave. I was not in the primary. They said, Eric, we're going to we're going to endorse in the primary. Let's have another conversation during the general. So there was a lot of people who stated that you're not in the primary. We want to make sure that this candidate does not win. And so
the smartest thing that Adams did was staying out of the Democratic Party for this election, because now there is no list of him saying things like what Zohran has said, which were popular in the moment, but everything you say in a primary comes back in the general, and it does haunt you.
Now, you have almost 1 million independent voters. You have many Democrats.
He got 423,000 votes in the primary.
Was that what is that percentage like? Would we have good turnout? Because we had 100-degree temperatures yesterday.
Yes, and that's a factor always. But if people are committed to you, because that's a good question that you just raised. When people are committed to you, they don't care if it's a snowstorm, if it's a rainstorm, if it's 100 degrees, they're getting to the poll. That's the passion that I believe Andrew did not bring. Where people were saying, no matter what, I'm going to the poll. Mamdani's voters said that. And so when you look at the fact that I had over 700,000 voters when I ran in 2021.
Right.
Because the general election is when everyone comes out. We have almost 1 million independent voters in this city.
Mr. Mayor, it has to work.
Here you go, Audio Vibes. You have the link. I think YouTube is annoying with links. He was on earlier tonight. All right. We'll get to it. Send that link again. See if it'll get here.
That your party chose this radical. I mean, we can sugarcoat it all day. He got a lot of support. He was working the streets. He was knocking on doors. He was all on social media. He was going from Harlem to the Bronx. And he galvanized people to support him. He's 33 years old. He just recently became an American. He has anti-Jewish rhetoric, anti-police rhetoric, and voters voted for him. He beat the former governor.
Well, I think your analysis is right on where he stands. But let's think about this for a moment. When you look at the total number of Democrats, the primary always brings out the left part of the party, always. When you're going into the general election, you're going to get those grandmothers, those granddads, those working class people who are going to come out because they realize they don't want to defund their police department. They want their police on their block. They realize that you have to invest in businesses, and small property owners are hurting in this city. When you talk about freeze rent and no rent, he's part of the freeze rent, no rent movement. That small property owners were losing their homes. We're talking about Black, brown, Caribbean immigrants who are small property owners. That is the message that we need to get out
Are you
there.
concerned, statistically, that you have, if Cuomo stays in, he's a Democrat, you're a Democrat, and Mamdani's a Democrat, and as Governor Pataki wrote in a column last week, goes that could be a alleyway for Sliwa to win with basically 28% of the vote.
Impossible for Sliwa to win. Impossible. Not going to happen. That is a fantasy. Makes no sense. And if they were serious about this, notice what the media is doing here. Sliwa would be sitting in this chair, not Eric Adams.
Concerned about your party dividing their votes?
No, I'm not. When I get out and do what I do best, and that's campaign, and share the story. My story has been overshadowed by so many external things, particularly lawfare. Once I'm able to show the success, highest number of jobs in our city history, lowest number of shootings and homicides in the recorded history of the city during this year, 12 months of Broadway, the greatest 12 months in the history of the city, drop in unemployment. When I'm out there showing how I improved the quality of life without all of that noise, you know, remember, I went through 15 months of just constant beating, but yet I'm still here. The resiliency of a New Yorker.
Mayor, we got to get you to respond because we see the war that it's a ceasefire right now between Israel and Iran. We know New York has a huge Jewish population. What is the threat level like here? What are you seeing from your intelligence community?
Yeah, we have a combination of one of the largest Jewish.
This is important. This is planting the seeds for these accusations. These accusations are going to be extremely easy for them because Zohran is a Shia Muslim, and they're going to associate him with Iran. Despite him having no links other than a religion, they are going to use that. So this is not a random question they're asking here. It's a great framing tool they're using to disqualify the other candidate.
And Persian populations. My deputy mayor, Levy, is of Persian descent. He knows what's going on in Iran. And so we are making sure, having overabundance of cautions. We're going to those sensitive locations, sensitive sites. We are really collaborating with our federal partners. Right now, intelligence is the real secret weapon.
But no credible threats right now.
No credible threats at this time, but we're going to take the necessary steps to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do.
Grizz says he's Shia. You sure? I mean, that's what I heard last night. Let's see if that's not the case. That's what I saw them complaining about. Yeah, he's a Shia Muslim, as I said. And they are going to use that. They are going to use that a lot. Guarantee it.
We want New York.
Unusual, right? I would have expected him to be Sunni, but he's not. I think he'd have an easier time being Sunni because they couldn't really associate him as much with Iran. But since he's Shia, they're going to do that, and they're going to be more based in reality, unfortunately, in terms of the Ayatollah is Shia. He's not Sunni. But if he was Sunni, they could probably link him to September 11th a lot more, just by virtue of the religion too, because it's just crap attacks, but they're going to happen.
Okay, see something, say something, do something. Let us figure it out if it's a legitimate threat or it's not a legitimate threat.
Do you think your relationship with President Trump, which is good, will help or hurt you in the election?
No, I think that the goal is to deliver for the city. I went to Washington 10 times to deal with the migrants and asylum seekers. I brought President Biden here to help with the crime problem we were having. He met with the police department. I'm going to always communicate with the President of the United States, no matter who it is. I respect.
And that's the perfect response. That's the thing that they're going to hold against him a lot on the campaign, in my opinion, that he spoke so negatively about President Trump, which is, I said it was a bad idea at the time, and I still say it's a bad idea because he's about to say it. You know, I stand with the flag. I stand with the president no matter who. And that, you know, these primaries they're going to keep all these receipts, all of these videos of him saying this kind of stuff. Grizz says, oof, that's going to be a brutal angle of attack. I can see people writing him off for that more than the anti-Semitism angle. Absolutely. The Iran association that they're going to do is going to be dirty, and it's going to work very, very well, unfortunately. I wonder, it all depends on, because the Trump voter, I don't think views Iran as a threat on a national level, but they'll fall in line for whatever that Trump really says. However, the average American, and I wonder the average New Yorker, if they view Iran as a ever-present daily threat. Either way, if every candidate is going at him with this same thing of, oh, you support the Ayatollah and you're going to, I don't know, buses are going to disappear in the city because you're going to support them, it's a rough attack angle.
The flag. And when you desecrate the flag, you desecrated people like my uncle, 19-year-old that died in Vietnam. I believe in the flag of the United States of America. And if President Trump is the president, I'm going to communicate with him to deliver for the people of the city of New York.
All right, Mayor Adams, game on.
Thank you so much.
All right, Adams, that's the most rational attack I've seen today on Zohran. Very good attack. Very smart, very measured, very Clinton-esque. And he's going to have President Trump on his side, which is going to be pretty big, I think. I do think that that is a benefit in the general, much less so than it would have been a benefit in the primary. So let's continue here. This is what he stated after he won.
Remarkable New York City story. Mamdani went from being a relatively unknown state lawmaker to the presumptive Democratic nominee for New York City mayor in just a matter of months. His rise to prominence is just one of the many subjects Bill Ritter covered in his exclusive sit-down with the candidate. Bill joining us now with the newsroom with more. Bill.
David, no question, this young man is suddenly the talk of politics here and just about everywhere. He is smart, filled with ideas, and a highly educated family. What he also is 33 years old. His work in government, just 4 years in the New York State Assembly, but a young man who believes...
There we have age and experience, which is a great attack. That's the first attack that they're going to come with. The second one, religion, obviously. And third one's just plain racism, right? So here we're really leaning on this one, and this is the one that you're going to see from the more rational sides during the attack. Because the good thing is when you have kooks on the internet, like the ones we played yesterday, like Patrick Bet-David, right, who are just going to attack him for being Muslim, you don't have to do it yourself. And you don't have to get your hands dirty. The other people can do it for you, right? So this is the smartest way for the mainstream, respectable side to go at it, right? To be, well, he's just inexperienced. While the other people online are saying, oh, he's a Muslim, that disqualifies him automatically to me.
Believes he's right.
Is what they would say, not what I'm saying.
Ready to help the country's biggest city. And he is nothing if not articulate, as I discovered this afternoon with Mr. Mamdani's first in-depth interview with Eyewitness News.
A campaign gives a glimpse of how one would run the city. And the campaign that I've run has been the most competent and innovative of any in this cycle. It's one where we have gone from 2 full-time staff to managing more than 50,000 people, where we raised the $8 million that we can spend in this race at record-breaking pace. And we've shown that our commitment is to competence, it's to outcomes, it's to excellence. And ultimately... Great counter towards the inexperience. That I do have a record. You guys are trying to say it's not impressive, but it is a record. Focus on the record. That's good. But I would even bring things outside of politics, just achievements in his personal life, because just someone that follows through is pretty good. It's not an amazing counter, but it's a great counter. Absolutely. Grizz says, is his answer of surrounding himself with right people good enough hold against the age angle attack? I think it's tough. I think that the way of understanding this, because here's where the boomer vote matters a lot here. How would you convince a boomer that you're competent if you're under the age of 45? Seriously think about that, because it's very, very tough. Maybe your parents are not boomers, but you've dealt with boomers. And boomers are very difficult to convince. They do not trust young people. In fact, they're resentful towards young people usually. They hate them. And boomers, to their credit, are competent on some things. So they see you incompetent in others. When a boomer doesn't understand how you can't change a tire, they do have a point. So how would you get a boomer to give you authority? It's a very, very tough question. Maybe surrounding yourself with the right people and also older people. I'm not sure if that's the correct 100% silver bullet, but it has to be something like that. How would you go to a boomer banker to get a loan? What would you do? It's think of it literally like that, because that is the way of convincing these people. It's the same thing that you'd experience in your personal life. That's fair. I believe it's fair. And it's tough. It's tough because until the boomers are gone, we're going to struggle a lot with this question. A lot, because they have a lot of voting power. Any leader is defined by the team that they put together. And I'm lucky that the team that I have put together in this campaign is one of the best and the brightest. And ultimately, that's what I would bring to City Hall.
And congratulations, and I understand why you're saying that, but Zohran, that's a very different thing running an campaign election, and it's not even the final campaign.
And by the way, I would say the advantage that Eric Adams has with the boomers, despite his age, is that the boomers, they don't have the same amount of racial animosity towards Eric Adams being black, because he's kind of insulated himself from that from having been a police officer. But also there's just much more animus towards the Muslim community in the United States because of September 11th, which boomers remember very clearly. So this is a disadvantage and a great advantage for the candidate Eric Adams. With Cuomo, I'm not sure if boomers love Cuomo. He has the right age, but he has a bad record. The thing is, I think with boomer men, he'd be popular, but it's tough to say. All I can say is that Eric Adams naturally can squirm himself out of that question.
Different than running a city. It is different.
I think there is nothing that can truly prepare you for running the city of New York. What can prepare you, however, are moments that you have to meet time and time again, ones that increase in scale and challenge. And one of the most meaningful things to me over the course of this race has been meetings that I've had with deputy mayors and commissioners from a wide variety of mayoral administrations in understanding just what this team could look like.
By the way, a former New Yorker by the name of President Trump wasting a little time by trashing Zohran Mamdani, the president of the...
Let's read it. It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Dem primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible. His voice is grating. He's not smart. He's got AOC plus 3 dummies all backing him. And even our great Palestinian Senator crying Chuck Schumer is groveling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in our history of our country. So here we have the first attack, the lefty attack, right? You're communists, very effective with boomers, very effective. And here we have the subtle, associating him with the great Palestinian senator. I don't know how that became an insult. It seems kind of really insensitive, but basically what that's saying is that you support terrorism. Therefore, you're a terrorist and you happen to be Muslim, so you are the terrorist. Obviously, by default in the movie, this is True Lies. You would be the terrorist. So this is the attack that you'd expect, and it is notable because it's from the president. And I think this is why I said if he had just said, I'm going to play ball with the president, could have gone a little better. Because if you court him away from Adams and towards you, it'd be great, even though he's a Republican, to have him on your side. It'd be great.
The United States calling the man who could be the next mayor of New York a, quote, 100% communist lunatic who looks terrible and is not very smart, end quote. Well, he's not a communist by any means, not a lunatic, looks pretty good and is very smart, as we discovered in my 20-minute interview with him coming up on Eyewitness News at 5:30. We are going to dig.
Interesting. All right. So here we have more clips from Two Way. This is a great show, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Mark Halperin's work. He's a great journalist, and he's started to cover this election more so now, less the primary. And all these clips today were pretty good about the election because Mark Halperin is a New Yorker. So this is something he would know. And he's talking with this guy here, Sean Spicer. You might remember him from the Trump administration, the first one. This is Dan. Dan is a Democrat who's one of the smart guys. And this is Meghan McCain. She's not relevant outside of this clip. So let's just watch and see, because here they're talking about, actually, I think it's set better context if we start with this one here, because here they talk about how Cuomo lost and how Zohran won.
General election. Here is one of the early indications of how the establishment, not necessarily people who endorse Cuomo, but people who stay neutral, will react to their nominee. Here is Hakeem Jeffries on Morning Joe, number 109, please.
I'm wondering, do you consider his win last night in New York City, do you think it provides a roadmap for Democrats running in 2026 on how to energize the base?
I think what's clear is that the relentless focus on affordability had great appeal all across the city of New York. He also clearly outworked, outorganized, and out-communicated the opposition. And when someone is successful in being able to do all three things at the same time, it's usually going to work out for them.
All right, let's talk about the general.
By the way, this is the only way that these guys can survive is by having people like that in the media give them a pass on this crap. It's unbelievable.
Well, let me just say two more things. I'll turn it over to you to talk for as long as you want. I said yesterday, I believe, the opposition research that's about to come on this guy is extraordinary.
Absolutely. I'm so glad he said it, because we've been saying that for a week now. They are going to bring up everything. If Zohran has ever visited the Al-Qaeda Wikipedia page, just out of curiosity, it's tough, man. It's tough because they're going to use that against him. They're going to use that against him. The opposition research that they are preparing or already have prepared is insane. It's insane. I promise you, they're going to have a whole lot of stuff. Audio says such an insane response from an insane man, so I guess it checks out. I think you mean President Trump. However, if he is an insane man, as you say, it'd be better to have him on your side. You always want crazy in your corner. You don't want that. Dan Rush says this guy is the poster child for the retarded younger generations. Man, I don't know if you mean Zohran, but the younger generations are flaming. Okay, well, that's a little ageist, man. But all right, if that's what you think of Zohran, then I'm respectful of your view. Grizz says, do you reckon if enough mud is slung at Zohran, it starts to lose its effectiveness, or even have the reverse effect, just bring more attention to him, interest? The mud they're going to sling at this guy, I promise you, it's going to be tough, because he already has a couple strikes against him in terms of they're going to keep bringing up Israel, but they're going to go through his whole browser history. They're going to look at, and he's an immigrant, so it's going to be even worse. They have his whole life history. They have his parents. They have so much leverage on him that they are going to pull out, that it's going to be incredibly tough. You're right. Maybe it's too much. Maybe people don't respond to it well. But as I said at the beginning of the show, for any Zohran supporters, I'm not saying give up hope. Just do this.
Welcome to the pain zone. It's where we live.
We're in the pain zone, okay? This is where you win elections. This is where elections are decided. This is how hard it is. And these people are killers. They are killers. So you have to be ready for this. And hopefully Zohran is. But what Mark is saying here is perfect. They're going to have so much Oppo research. It's going to blow your head off how much research they have.
The media did a horrible job, and the Cuomo people did a horrible job of illuminating his record. Okay, so you're about to read stuff he wrote in high school, stuff he's written. He's young, but he's still got a paper trail. And so that's going to be part of the general election, as is the choice of all these Democrats and the question of who's on the general election ballot. So, Dan, I'll tee you up and you go any direction you want, but start by responding to me. What's the most likely scenario where he's not the next mayor?
Well, I think it's probably that the Republicans, independents, and moderate Democrats rally around the incumbent, Mayor Adams, that even though he's got a lot of flaws and may be in prison at some point here, well, he was Trump gave him a pardon, but yeah. He was on the verge of potentially being
no pardon. They dropped the charges.
They dropped the charges. That they rally around him because on some level crime is down and there's some affordability issues that Mayor Adams has kind of made a dent in. Look, I think one, Sean, he's not a whack. He won, right? So let's tip our cap.
I don't care.
No, but Sean, a lot of people.
No, hold on. Let me just ask this: do you want to own what he said? I can't.
Sean, be specific. We talked to Bill de Blasio about this last night on 289. De Blasio makes a compelling case that a lot of his positions, raising taxes on the wealthy to open supermarkets and food deserts.
That's crazy.
Right?
I think the anti-Semitic stuff.
Well, okay.
Look, the policies are full on socialism. I mean,
I hear you. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I hear you. His politics are not mine, but like I want to be respectful of somebody who runs and wins in a big city. Like, okay, because I see people in the chat saying like,
Dan, hold on, time out. I want to be respectful, but a guy that says what he says about Jews doesn't deserve.
All right, I see that you corrected that word there, Grizz. I think that could answer your question. I think if they stick to one thing, it would have that effect, because we see here Sean Spicer going a little wild over the anti-Semitism accusations, which, all right, fair, if that's your issue. But the problem is that there are many angles of attack. So if people get tired of hearing, oh, he's a crazy Muslim, they can just switch to, oh, he's a crazy communist. Or, oh, he's an immigrant. Oh, he hates Trump and he's not going to make the city work. Oh, he has no experience. So if they're strategic with it, which I think they will be, they're not going to come at him with everything at once. They're going to go with different things at different times. And that's just going to chip and chip and chip and chip. Do not give up. I'm not telling you to give up. I'm just saying you have to keep this in mind. You have to keep this in mind.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, Sean,
let me just say, his position on Israel and Jews is going to be much discussed, but I predict he'll moderate on it. Number one. Number two, Sean, I'm not minimizing it, but I want to not use that set of issues.
And this, what Mark says here, is interesting, that he'll moderate on the Israel question. I can see that being an approach. The problem is that the voters that you've activated who would come out again, probably, maybe, they're young. In a primary, they're active because they get to defeat Cuomo. In a general, who knows? The problem is, if you moderate, how does that make people look? How does that make you look to the people that supported you? Okay? There's already a clip of Zohran where he's getting yelled at by a Palestinian activist. And justifiably so. Because the guy is saying, oh, you can't hold two positions at once. It's cognitive dissonance. And I just say, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Because even if Zohran has to moderate, if you want to institute policies, then you get him in power. Right? That's what you would do. But the problem is that he's dealing with a very fractured coalition. That's a problem. And people care about different issues and with a lot of emotional intensity. So it makes it very difficult for him to moderate and still keep the same people who got him to win the primary, in my opinion.
To paint him with a broad brush on everything.
But hold on. When it comes to Donald Trump, they make up every lie about the guy when it comes to race and both sides and hoaxes. And when we come to this guy, it's like, well, we can't talk about his anti-Semitic views.
We will talk about it. We will talk about it at great length. But I predict he'll moderate on it. Number one.
John, just like when Trump says outrageous stuff, I don't say he's a whack job, right? I don't.
Plenty do.
Okay, well, that's good for them.
But look, let's just stay. Let's leave aside the question of would he be a good mayor. Let's leave that aside for a moment. Although we'll get to that.
Gris says, I can see why anti-Semitism is an angle of attack, but is there genuine grounds for it? Can't remember seeing any so far. You have not seen any so far. Okay, I agree with you. However, as I mentioned, the Oppo research, I'm not saying he even said anything. All I'm saying is if he looked up on Google, his search history, they have all this stuff. They will pay people to find everything on this guy. If he Googled once, how would the two-state solution actually work? Boom, they're going to use that. And they're going to say this is anti-Semitic. And that's at minimum. At minimum. If he Googled what percentage of New York's electorate is Muslim or Jewish, that's already it. It's not really about the reality of it. It's what they can create. And now that the general's here, they're going to try to create a lot of stuff. And they may be successful with it in a lot of ways because it's politics. It's dirty. It's dirty shit, man. He has to be ready to take that on because they will make stuff up if there is no evidence for it. It just makes sense. You would do the same thing. You would do the same thing. You would make anything up about another candidate in order to win. It just makes sense. It's good politics. It's fucked up, but politics is that, you know?
Assuming the president doesn't start. Dan says Mayor Adams, people rallying around Mayor Adams, not Cuomo, not Sliwa, not some other candidate.
I don't think Cuomo's going to run.
Okay, I don't either.
Okay, so
hold on.
That's interesting because there is much debate about whether Cuomo will run or not. And if Cuomo really hates Mamdani, he will not run and throw his support behind Eric Adams, which is going to be very challenging to overcome. Grizz, can they present browsing history like legally? Legality's out the window here because even if it's illegal, what they're gonna do is a source leaked. Even if they do it themselves, they're gonna go. There's always a fall guy. If they think it's that important, there will be a fall guy. But the story's already out. That's the problem. It doesn't matter. Legality is not. I mean, someone brought up last night the 2000 election. The 2000 election, a lot of people say that Gore actually won. The reality is that was not decided in the normal way that politics is usually decided in this country, right? With votes, supposedly. When the courts came to it, when Bush v. Gore was decided, they sided with Bush and they limited the recount. And even the recount they did, they had to make stuff up about why they couldn't count certain votes. So the votes didn't even matter. So that's what I mean is that there is so much trickery you can use. And the people who he's running against, the only counter to this, which would be incredibly skillful of him, is him to actually co-opt the Democrats that are backing him now, the Democratic establishment, which I think is tough. I think it's possible, but it's tough because they probably hate him. They probably hate him. All right, I see that makes sense. Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's going to get bloody. It is going to get bloody, Grizz. It's going to get very bloody very quickly.
Hold on.
Here's Mayor Adams.
Grizz, I mean things like even if they have pictures of him eating at a Palestinian restaurant when he's 11 years old in Uganda, they're going to bring that up. They're going to bring it up. I mean, just think of all the examples, right? Obama birth certificate. Whether you think that was legit or not, that was a great strategy. It was smart. John McCain didn't play into it because John McCain is an idiot. He could have used it to win the election. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that was a great strategy. That was smart. Oh, you're president. The president's a foreigner. That's a great strategy. It's a shame, but that stuff works. It really does work.
This morning, okay, on Fox and Friends, 108, please.
He's a snake oil salesman. He will say and do anything to get elected. Think about this for a moment. He wants to raise 1%. He wants to raise tax on.
I don't know if this was focus group because Eric Adams is a bit off the cuff. But if you start seeing that word more, don't be surprised. Snake oil salesman, because it's a very American term. But there is an implicit association with South Asia, which is where his origins lie. And snakes, you know, the classic Indiana Jones, the bad guy is the snake flute guy. So it's smart. He has to know that this is the case. He has to know. If he doesn't, it's unfortunate, but he has to know. Grizz says, oh yeah, Obama, they did that to the first black president. Yep. They will do anything, man. Look at Gary Hart. A lot of people, they made a movie about him with Hugh Jackman. The guy was just having an affair. Nothing more than that. His wife didn't even really care that much. But what happened? That cost him the election. The reality is it's because he was on the church committee. But regardless, look at how they got him there. They'll do this to anyone. These people this is a mafia. It's a mafia. And you will learn more politics, in my opinion, watching a movie like HBO's made-for-TV Gotti than anything. Because the mafia is also a similar thing, right? Where John Gotti assassinated another boss. You're not supposed to do that. It breaks the rules. But did it matter? It was illegal in their terms, but he did it anyway. And what did he get? He got the power. These people are willing to do anything and everything to achieve power.
1% of New York is high-income earners. As the mayor, you don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah.
You know who has the authority to do that? An assemblyman, which he is. He wants to do free buses. He could have done it at assemblyman. He doesn't understand the power of government and how you must making sure you improve your economy, raise the standard of living, and this is what we've done in the city. And I'm looking forward to being on the campaign trail and showing New Yorkers we can't go backwards.
Sean.
So here's the two things I want to ask you guys. One, I don't care whether or not Cuomo's on a ballot or not, like has one of the 87 lines in New York or not. But my question is, my question is, how do you look yourself? I don't like politically understand how you go, I can fight on the workers line. Like that's a further embarrassment. And then I think the second question I would ask is, does Curtis Silva have a shot now through a series of bank shots? And
I'm glad they said it immediately. And Curtis Silva knows that. And we're going to see what Curtis Silva does, because he may be a deciding factor if he throws himself around behind Adams, which, who knows? Depends on his ego, right? But it would be interesting to see if that happens. That's going to be hard to counter.
He doesn't. But look, the rich people of this city, the elites of this city, are either going to settle on a plan or they're not. And I think the race is on to say, how quickly is the opposition research in the public realm, which I guarantee you, when the full facts about him are widely dispersed, and the New York Times will do a 17-part series, it'll be more favorable, Sean, than you would write it. Are those facts dispersed? But I guarantee you that some number of voters who voted for him last night will not vote for him in the general election if they're given another choice once the facts about him are more commonly known.
So let me
hold on. Let me just finish. So that's one track. How quickly is that stuff out there? And then the other track is, can the establishment, the rich people of this city, settle on an alternative? Are they for Adams, or do they get Cuomo?
Bill Ackman today already said he has a candidate he wants to run. So this isn't a bad theory either.
To go, or do they get someone else in the race? That's, to me, the whole thing. Those two tracks, because I don't think they'll get someone in the race soon enough. And I think he'll consolidate, because I think there'll be pressure on the establishment like Jeffries to endorse him. Dan.
Well, and I think, and I tweeted this yesterday afternoon, that is something that I am watching. Kirsten Gillibrand's the head of the DSCC, the junior senator from New York, Chuck Schumer, who I don't see today how he runs for re-election in a few years. He has got a huge set of problems. And then obviously, Hakeem Jeffries, who now, has got a problem now with AOC, his mayor, and he's trying to hold this together to be the speaker. So I think it is going to be interesting to see what happens. I go back to those working families in the outer parts did not buy what he was selling. And that would concern me if I'm him, because what he's talking about with all of this free stuff, I think they just look at it and say, I don't buy it.
They say that something that's...
All right. Great analysis there. I really enjoyed what they were saying there. We have more from them. Grizz says, I don't know if you noticed this, but Zohran sometimes repeats answers word for word, like his Jewish friends terrified who opened the door example. Couple more examples. That common politics. I think it was even more common in the past, but yeah, it's still very common, and it makes a lot of sense because you're on the internet, right? But the voters you're going for are boomers usually, right? And boomers don't all watch the same channels. Boomers watch different channels. So it's interesting. that's just going to continue until TV's gone, and TV will be gone with the boomers. So it is common, and while you may find it annoying, I find it annoying, right? Because why are you saying the same thing? It's strategic because you have to talk to different audiences, and coming up with new talking points is difficult and also ineffective, because why do you want to say different things? They also say different things for different audiences usually, but in a primary, they're speaking to Democratic outlets, so they're going to repeat a lot of the same stuff. Mr. Baum says, "Oh, I finally caught you live. I really appreciate your unique perspective." Thank you, sir. Even though I never know what you're thinking from your facial expressions. Well, that's the mystery. That's the mystery.
Start with the mayoral campaign in New York City. A huge story for Gotham City, but also a huge story for the Democratic Party and for the Republican Party, because Republicans, including Trump Republican strategists, are delighted at the notion that New York might elect a young socialist mayor. So here's, I think...
By the way, Mark is very down the middle in the way he covers stories. So he's not being coy or anything. He's usually down the middle. He's a very good journalist in that sense. Right? That makes sense, Chris? Yeah, that makes sense. It's until the boomers are gone, then you don't have to say the same thing everywhere, because everyone will just get their info online.
The best analysis of what happened, because there's lots of cross currents here, including the establishment candidate had a lot of weaknesses in Cuomo. Here's the best analysis from one of the smartest Democratic analysts, David Shore, who tweeted earlier today, or maybe last night, his view of why the underdog, Mr. Mamdani, was able to win. He's a great example of how far you can go if you genuinely center your campaign in an engaging way around the issue the voters overwhelmingly say in surveys they care the most about. No doubt that he's about affordability and quality of life. For many elite New Yorkers, quality of life is, can you go see a Broadway show and not have to step over a homeless person? But for other New Yorkers, quality of life is to be able to afford the basics.
This is a great point, because I've seen it in New York. New York has become a very Rio de Janeiro type place, meaning that if you're in New York and you're rich, you don't even have to worry about the homeless, because you get out, there's a private car, you get on the private car, and that's it. You go to wherever you need to go. But normal people have to live with problems.
Housing, education, transportation, and food. Here is one of many videos that Mamdani made during the campaign that gives you an idea of his relentless, humorous, and talented focus on quality of life and costs. Play video, please.
New York is suffering from a crisis, and it's called halalflation. Today, we're going to get to the bottom of this. How much does a plate of halal cost right now from this truck?
$10.
$10. Chicken over rice, lamb over rice, $10.
$10?
Yeah.
When you're a street vendor, you have to pay for the food, the plates. How much do you have to pay for your permit?
Before it was 22K.
17,000.
How much does a license cost if you get it from the city?
I think 400.
And who are you paying?
The permit owner.
You're not paying the city?
No.
All right.
You pay the permit owner $20.
That's insane. I saw this ad today. I hadn't seen it because of that same tweet. That is crazy that New York has allowed that to happen. It's similar to the taxi cab medallion, but this just doesn't make any sense. This is crazy that you're synthetically buying permits.
It goes
Just so
on.
you can sell this food.
You take it down, Paul. It goes on. So let's start with the basic question. Dan, do you accept that although he won for lots of reasons, that the main reason he won is he talked in a compelling way about the economy, affordability, and quality of life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard from people yesterday when I talked about his kind of generating social media content relentlessly, like, hey, you didn't focus on what he was saying. And you're right. I didn't think we had enough time. And the question was kind of more about mechanics. He did. He focused relentlessly on it. That video is one of many that he did. He met a lot of young people where they were. He energized them. I think the big issue is, and I don't know if we have it to put this map up, is where he won, but also where he didn't. And when the Democratic Party is looking forward now at 2026, 2028, if you know New York City here, so he won in the red. He won in areas, Brooklyn and Queens, kind of along the waterfront, that is home to a lot of young people and kind of younger, young people and high-end kind of progressives, right? He won downtown.
He won white limousine liberals. That's his base. Hold on.
Those blue areas, both in Manhattan, up in the Bronx, which is the north, the kind of Queens on the outer edges down to Brooklyn, Staten Island, are where a lot of working class families with children live. And those are a lot more similar to the outer rings of Las Vegas and Phoenix and Charlotte And while they're very ethnically diverse, and in places like Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Detroit, where you have a little more kind of black and white working class voters, he did not win. And so this was the Barack Obama issue in 2007. He appealed to the super high-end liberals and young people, and he had to relentlessly work to win over kind of the middle class, working class people. The question now for the general election is, can Mamdani...
Hold on. We'll get to the general election in a second. Hold on. Sorry.
That's great analysis. What he's saying, if we're looking at it from a class perspective, is he lost the bourgeois, but he won the aristocrats. And that means something, but you need the bourgeois to win. You need them. And the petit bourgeois too, the working class too, but the bourgeois is the hardest to turn, especially the bourgeois aristocrat, which is common in America. And most of these people are boomers, and that's why it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. Greg says, right, that makes sense. And it is insane. It's insane that you pay $22,000 to sell food. That's crazy. I don't get that. But you know what? I do get it. I do get it because the people that are making money off of it, selling it for $20K, are happy with the system. And they have all the connections to the insiders, and the streetcar vendors don't. So it makes a lot of sense. You would have to get someone in there to break up that relationship. And that's tough. Audio says, it's really unfortunate that he is going to be targeted for his background and religious beliefs, and that will likely outshine his new and refreshing form of campaigning. Absolutely. It's a shame to go that low to attack religion. I really dislike that a lot because I've seen it myself. Catholicism being attacked in this country as well, and Islam. I think those are the two most attacked religions in politics at the moment, and it's a real shame. Grizz says, also, do you reckon Zohran team have done deep dives themselves to prepare answers to any red flags in his past? I think they have, but the thing is, you never know what they're going to come up with. If you're a lawyer, you know for a deposition you prepare for anything. If they ask Zohran, have you ever graped anyone before? That's a question you would ask your client in a deposition to prepare, because you never know what they're going to come out with. You never know, especially in the age of AI. Because if they make an AI image of Zohran hanging out with P. Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein, okay, this is an exaggerated example, but let's say they did that. Now he has to say that that's not real. And that's a problem. Because now you have to address it. The best answer there would be to ignore it, but most politicians cannot take that discipline to just ignore things.
Sorry. Sean, more moderate Democrats who don't want people to panic over this, or the press to say it's a disaster, are saying, don't focus on some of his outlier liberal positions on things like Israel. Focus on the fact that he's talking about original ideas for quality of life. And you could have the moderate Democratic nominees for governor in Virginia and in New Jersey, same thing. They're just stylistically different. Do you consider this to be a disaster for Democrats that he won for the reasons that he won? Or do you see that it's possible that this is the beginning of Democrats talking about quality of life with original ideas?
I don't think you can separate the two. I think every Republican tracker, opposition researcher should be putting a camera in every Democrat's face saying, do you stand with the anti-Semitic views and the crazy socialist views of this nut job, and making them answer for it? This should divide the Democratic Party. This guy's a whack job. He's anti-Semitic. And I think that every Democrat, from Chuck Schumer to AOC to the Arizona, every vulnerable Democrat should have to answer for him. If Republicans do this...
I hadn't even thought of that. It's a good thing. They're going to make other Democrats answer for hhim. Schumer already is meeting with him today, I think, or said he spoke with him on the phone, the governor of New York too. But yeah, if Sean Spicer represents the MAGA side, and this is going to be a great attack for Trump to have in the future. You supported this guy. You supported this crazy anti-Semite to win the mayorship in New York. And that's a calculus that Democrats will have to make. They're going to have to go, well, if I don't support him and he loses, I lose very little. If I do support him and he wins and he does well, I gain a lot. If I do support him and he wins and he does poorly, I lose a lot more. So Democrats have to make that calculus in their head, the establishment Democrats. Grid says, yeah, they need one thing to stick, even if it's a complete lie. Tricky. Absolutely. Super tricky. That's the thing. If his team is experienced, seasoned political people, they will know that this is coming. Gosh, he's coming down hard with anti-Semitic angle. Yep. Because it works. It's smart. And the thing is, someone like Sean Spicer or anyone on the MAGA side, why would you not say this? This is genius. This is the smartest thing you could do. Because you won the election with a lot of Jewish support and also some Muslim support. So he's not attacking the religion, which is smart. I haven't seen that from either Trump or Spicer. They're attacking the anti-Semitism and the Palestinian position, but not the religion. So they might as well attack it. It's smart. You don't lose the Muslim vote, which you had a little bit of gain in, and you don't lose the Jewish vote. In fact, you expand it.
That's right, and that's an if. Then I think that this could be a massive opportunity. But Democrats own this guy now. This is the future. They own socialism, they own anti-Semitism, and they need to explain it.
They say that.
Smart. All right, last clip here. This is with Meghan McCain. I'm not a huge fan of Meghan McCain, but let's see what she had to say on the show about him.
I was not the only one that told you Mamdani was going to win. I think
That's
you're
true.
how Megan did too.
That's true. You did.
Sorry.
Megan's been texting me for like
By the way,
2 months.
it's funny that the
Sorry.
Republicans are the ones that call this.
Yeah, Megan's been
You know
texting
what?
me for
It's
2
momentum.
months, telling me. Yeah, it's
And
true.
I know all these people I know from college who are sort of like, the classic limousine, self-loathing liberals are obsessed with him. And and Cuomo's such a pig. I mean, no offense, but I mean, he's such a weak candidate on so many different levels, and he's just a gross person. I thought in the debate when Mamdani was like, I've never been accused of,
Yes.
when he was going down the roster of all his, I've never killed old people. Like I've never, and I was just like, wow. I mean, talk about really not. And I do think the era of the, sorry, I could talk forever, as you know, I'll stop talking.
They say that.
That was a good analysis of the election. Not super relevant now. Now, what we want to get to here is CNBC. Now, this news may not matter much to you if you don't follow the financial markets, but it matters a lot to people in finance and boomers because they have investments. They are the generation with the most investments. So they're going to be watching CNBC. And CNBC has been knives out today.
Mamdani is now declaring victory in New York City's Democratic mayoral primary. It's a bit of a shocker, at least for some, maybe not in the past 24 hours, but compared to where people were thinking about this just maybe 72 hours ago, it definitely is. Joining us right now, Edward Schuyler. He's the former deputy mayor in the Bloomberg administration. He's the head of enterprise services and public affairs at Citi. It's great to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
What do you think?
I'm surprised. I'm not shocked. I'm surprised Mamdani won the first round. I'm not surprised with the ultimate result. If you look at the polling over the last 10 days where these races generally close, Mamdani was closing the gap. And that's why you saw establishment figures like Michael Bloomberg, my old boss, people like Bill Clinton jump into this race because they saw the same thing that we were seeing, that those polls were getting tighter and tighter. What you also saw was a huge enthusiasm gap. With Mamdani's supporters were motivated. Right. He was very clever about how he bypassed the media and spoke directly to them. And he took advantage of the fact that Cuomo ran an essentially incumbent Rose Garden low-risk strategy, which backfired on him.
So we had Kathy Wild sitting in the chair you were in yesterday, and she said the business community is terrified. I mean, describing it almost as a panic attack. And so the question is, what happens next? And what do you think the business community does? What does a former mayor Bloomberg do with his money? He's, of course, been supporting somebody like an Andrew Cuomo.
I don't think you have to look past money here. Okay. I mean, the Cuomo PAC raised something like $25 million. He lost in the first round. So I think this is not about what the business community does. This is about what the future of the city is. And there are serious issues facing New York City. New York City, when you look at the numbers, has not fully recovered from COVID. Violent crime is still higher than it was before COVID. Office vacancy rates are still 4 or 5 percentage points ahead of where they were. Our economic recovery has lagged the nations. Our job growth has lagged the nations.
So do you think, though, the public that just voted in this primary is recognizing all of the issues that you're describing and saying this is the candidate that can fix those issues?
No, I think what they did is they listened to him talk about affordability and the struggles lower and middle class New Yorkers have had for years. The same dynamics which also propelled de Blasio into office in 2013. And he was able to talk about those issues. Now, the fact that his solutions may be implausible, hard to implement, or may drive the city further into increase the out-year budget deficits that it already faces, they didn't spend a lot of time focusing on that. But he did tap into people's frustrations, and he was very successful. However, what we've seen the last couple of years with New York City is that people voted with their feet. We've lost about 500,000 New Yorkers since the pandemic, going to places like New York, like Florida, and Texas. And the only reason that has ebbed in the last couple of years has been the migrant crisis. So there's serious issues facing New York, and we'll see if the
all the things you're saying. My question to you is, if you don't believe that he's the right candidate, yet New Yorkers are coming out in droves for him. Who emerges? Does somebody emerge? Do you believe that Mayor Adams has a real role in this? Do you think that a Republican can win in this election? I'm looking at you, Joe Kernan, because maybe he'll run.
Me. I live in New Jersey.
So I think Adams, this result has given Adams new life. Can he win? That's going to be hard. Michael Bloomberg won in 2009 as an independent. He won by about 50,000 votes or 4 percentage points. However, he also ran the Republican line. In this case, Curtis Lee was on the Republican line. He got almost 30% of the vote 4 years ago. Adams and he are going to be competing for those same people that support the police, support public safety, want better quality of life. They're going to be competing against each other. The other X factor is, while Andrew Cuomo before was saying that he was going to be in the race in November regardless, it's not clear whether he will or not, and they'll also be competing against each other.
Okay, so if Mamdani is the mayor, explain to us the powers of the mayor.
That is a good counter argument to everything I've been saying. That if 3 people are running in opposition to him, even though Silwa is not going to pick up a lot of votes, it splits the vote for the other candidate that would be viable. And that's not a bad point. It's not a bad point. Grizz says there's also a point to be made that the people working against him haven't had time to cook yet, considering how fast he rose. Yes, that's true. But look, July, August, September, October. They have 4 months. 4 months. And in 1 month, with the shady people that politicians contract to do this kind of stuff, you never know. You never know.
Can do, what that will mean for the city?
Well, there's some things he's talked about that he can do and some things that he...
No, I just mean the powers of the mayor. We were talking about that earlier.
And if 4 months doesn't sound like a lot, 4 months, yeah, it's a third of a year. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. A wedding ring's supposed to cost quarter year salary. We usually say 3 months because it sounds like less, but they have a third of a year. That's a lot of time.
How much control does the mayor have over the city? What things does he control? The purse, the budget? Does he control the police?
The police.
How does that work?
So,
and violent crime's still up. He controls the police.
He will oversee the biggest municipal government potentially in the U.S., the largest police force in the U.S., the largest public hospital system in the U.S., and he has a lot of executive authority. If he wants to raise taxes other than the property tax, he's got to go to Albany. If he wants to have free bus service, which he's promised, he's got to go to Albany. So he has a lot of inherent executive authority about running the city on a day-to-day basis. Things like raising taxes or sometimes even getting greater borrowing authority. The city, in a lot of ways, is a creature of the state. However, from a quality of life perspective, the essential day-to-day services that make New York great, clean streets, safe streets, better schools.
I think people are overstating this because while people in the know are going to be like, oh, it's not possible to do what he's promising. The problem is for them is that it doesn't matter. It's a campaign promise. Campaign promises can be broken. And as long as you say, I can do it, that's it. Obama essentially promised single payer. Did he do it? No, but he promised it and he won. So you can promise anything. I think this is only something that applies to the boomer who is the target audience of CNBC. And finance bros. So it is relevant like that.
Those are things that he'll have responsibility for. And the largest entity he's ever run has been his campaign. And his legislative record in Albany is pretty thin. And so it's going to be...
5 bills.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think the quote-unquote establishment has missed here? There was actually a fascinating piece in New York Magazine that was published this week. It said that his ascension, effectively, is a indictment of the way the quote-unquote establishment in New York has approached this city and its citizens.
I think that every once in a while the establishment gets surprised. We saw it with AOC beating Joe Crowley, who was in line to be Speaker of the House. But I think if you looked at the underlying trends of this race, it was very clear it was going to be a 2-person race and that race tightened considerably. And the people need, competency is a great quality. And Andrew Cuomo has it in spades. However, it doesn't motivate people to the polls. And the public polls call people and they ask people, who are you going to vote for? But they misjudged the enthusiasm that Mamdani supporters had, and Cuomo just didn't have people that were willing to leave their houses and residences and go vote for him. And I think that ability of Mamdani to bypass the media and speak directly to people was really compelling.
But you think he's the next mayor?
If you had to bet today, it's highly likely he'll be the next mayor. And if that's the case,
this is very good to say. This activates the boomer. Very smart to say on TV. Super smart, because that's the boomer. That's the vote you need, the boomer vote to take him out. So you're going to create. We already saw this starting during the primary, where they are creating tension, and tension brings people out. You don't know about tension? Look up the strategy of tension. It was a great and effective tool used during the Operation Gladio days during the Cold War. Kept Europe as a democracy in most countries. Did not let them go fascist and did not let them go communist. Tension is the best thing you could do. Don't be surprised if there are incidents to make him look bad in New York, but that's tinfoil hat stuff, right? Grizz says, yeah, Donald, President of Peace, was hell of a promise to bend. Absolutely, he bent it. And it worked though. You know, he got in office. Yeah, the Zohran volunteers did insane door to door. Yeah. Their outreach was great. But it's very different to bring out new voters versus the voters that are going to show up on that day. And again, I'm glad that they mentioned in that Adams interview, it was 100 degrees when they voted for the primary. And it's also a primary. It's going to be a nice November day when they're voting in November. So the boomers are not going to have a reason to not come out.
I think we all want to be incredibly successful.
Well, let me ask you a different question. You've heard a lot of companies or business leaders or others say, look, we're all going to leave the city. If taxes go up 2% on millionaires, they're going to leave the city. Do you believe that's true?
I believe it's been happening to some extent.
Right.
If you look at people's views of New York City, quality of life, of public safety, effectiveness of government services, Citizens Budget Commission puts out a residence survey every few years. Those numbers still trail where they were before COVID. As I said before, we've lost New Yorkers to other jurisdictions. One of the reasons is because we're the most heavily taxed city in the country, and they've gone to other jurisdictions where they get treated more favorably from a tax perspective. So people have voted with their feet. The other disturbing piece of public data is 55% of New Yorkers say they won't be in New York City in 5 years.
Wow.
So there's a lot of warning signs that the city that's flashing.
Do you talk to other business leaders to say maybe we should get out of here?
I think people will take a wait and see attitude. I don't think that people are going to be putting their homes in the market, or people are companies will be packing up tomorrow. There's also, we all have to recognize, wherever you are in the political spectrum, left, right, or in the middle, campaigning and campaign promises, things get different when you're in government. Things get different when you're in the seat.
This is a very reasonable take. The exodus from New York angle is crap. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. New York is going to continue regardless of who wins.
So we'll have to see where his campaign promises land once he's actually in City Hall.
Maybe some affordable housing if everyone moves.
Affordable housing is actually one of those issues that every candidate had talked about as an issue. Even Mayor Adams is an incredibly ambitious affordable housing plan, because affordable housing hasn't kept up with the job creation in New York City. So that is one issue that unites him. Unfortunately, the Mamdani plan relies heavily on increasing the city's debt and tax hikes.
So the 55% of New Yorkers who say they don't think they'll be here in 5 years, how does that compare historically? I know that this is how much higher is that than you would normally
It's definitely an increase, but it also goes to people's dissatisfaction where the city is, and the fact that, as I said before, the city just hasn't fully recovered from the pandemic. New York City is a great engine, but every engine needs to be tuned. Every engine needs to be calibrated. And what you've seen the last couple of years is with the mayor unfortunately being distracted by scandals and indictments and other issues, that New York just hasn't lived up to its full potential.
The 55%, do you know the demographics on who those people are? Are they people who say they can't afford to live here anymore? Or are they the people who are really wealthy and tired of getting taxed?
The survey was really across, race, ethnicity, and income gap. I think it just speaks to people being less satisfied than they had been. New York has a lot of momentum going into the pandemic, and we've yet to fully recover from it. Yeah. And it'll be the job of the next mayor to really have New York reclaim, its role as the best-run city, as with the highest quality of life, the lowest crime, and the best economic opportunity for people from every walk of life.
Very measured and very good response. Agree with most of that. He was coming down the middle. Obviously, he has to work with whoever it is that's in power. So it's a very good response for him. So Chris says, if Zohran loses in November, where does that leave him going forward in politics? The good thing is that Zohran's created a brand. And Zohran, this is one of my theories here about the Democratic Party. it goes into a wider theory. I think that the Democratic Party is not underperforming right now. I think that what it's doing is on purpose. I think that if you know about professional wrestling, even if you're not a fan, there is this role of the jobber, who is someone who is designed to lose. I think that the Democrats are fulfilling that role at the moment. And the moment that Democrats start winning again is the moment when they drop the Palestine issue entirely. Fortunately or unfortunately, no matter what side you are on that conflict, that's when you can see the Democrats are really going to go after Trump, because that has cost them a lot. So with that, I think that the canary in the coal mine will be if they ever really go up against Ilhan Omar. Because although I agree with her a lot of stuff, she is one of the more outspoken members on that issue. And I think she's a nuisance to them. I think they don't like her, very similar to AOC, but they still haven't taken her out, which is very interesting. So if Ilhan is still in power, which is a big if, the moment you see Democrats completely turn on the Palestine issue is the moment that they're starting to think about power again, very, very seriously. I think that a lot of the Democratic establishment is satisfied with what Trump is doing in that conflict and that region at the moment. And for that reason, they're not getting involved. But if she is removed, I think it will be very hard for Zohran to transition to Congress. I think that they are very annoyed with that type of person, that the people that bring up those issues. And that's the moment that they're going to say, whether correctly or incorrectly, maybe it'll cost them votes, but they're going to go, hey, this issue has caused us a lot of problems. You already see them doing it with the trans issue. Democrats cared about trans people for 10 years. They've dropped that entirely. As you'd expect, these people are a mafia. And that's fine. That's just how it operates, right? They will pick up an issue and throw it away. This is costing me votes. I'm throwing it away. And they saw that cost them a lot of votes from the Jewish and Muslim community in the last national election. So, Abe Dicta says, what do you mean canary and coal mine? What I mean is that, brother, the left, I'm not sure what you mean there, but canary in the coal mine, I mean, is when they take out Ilhan Omar, the most outspoken person on that side, the Democratic side, is when you will see the Democratic Party, they have completely abandoned that issue, the Palestine issue, because they want to take power. That's what I mean by it. I mean that she is the most radical one on that. Whether she's correct or incorrect, that's up to you. But that has cost them a lot of votes, and that is the problem. That if they start putting real money into whoever's running against her, they will really be able to erase that from their party. And they don't want that in their party. If they seriously want to win, they don't want that in their party. It costs them a lot of votes. That's what I mean by that. Grizz says, oh, yes, they dropped that. Good point. Yeah, they drop everything and anything. Both parties. Look at the Republican Party. The Republican Party was the party of free trade, low taxes. They dropped all that to win the election. Abe Dicta says, of the left, all is radical, brother. The left is radical? No, I wouldn't agree that the left is all radical because, is Nancy Pelosi radical? No, she's just a neoliberal who happens to be a little bit on the left, right? Radical was more on the, if we go all the way to the extreme, it's going to be someone like, Chesa Boudin, right? That's a very radical person on the left. But no, I don't think the whole left is radical. Not at all. I think that that's what this election was all about, that the people were fed up with the neoliberal establishment on the left from the Zohran side.
Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, someone's here. That's why I said this. Someone who has run for office, who knows the how sharp the elbow is. Michelle Crusoe-Cabrera is here to talk about Mamdani being the guy after Cuomo.
Again, CNBC, very important for the boomer vote. Very important for the boomer vote.
Basically conceded to this gentleman and state assemblyman.
Dave Dicta says AOC is radical. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Those are the people that they don't like. Nancy Pelosi liked AOC for a very brief period to oppose Donald Trump during his first term. But in reality, AOC has just been a pain in the ass. Even though she's cozied up a bit to the establishment, she's a pain in the ass for these people. They don't like her. They don't like her. Grizz says, all right, I'm off. Thanks for the informative insights. Thank you, Grizz. Thank you, Grizz. I appreciate it. I appreciate the chats. If you can catch the rest of this, tomorrow we are going to cover the new prison in Florida, which is a very interesting subject. I might drive by it this weekend, actually, where they're going to build it, if they do.
No candidate is set to secure a majority in the first round of the city's ranked choice election. But last night, he did lead the vote count, and he had as we're finding out, 44% in 1 million votes, the biggest we've seen.
It was a very heavy turnout, very heavy turnout.
We have betting sites now, so nothing's a surprise anymore.
Right.
Because he moved ahead in those and in some of the polls, so I still thought it might not happen.
So last night...
I don't live here, so it's not...
So the results aren't official yet, but basically last night a socialist won the Democratic primary in New York City. And generally in states or cities where you have one party that dominates the politics of a city or a state, whoever wins the primary generally goes on to win the general election. So right now the betting markets have that a socialist will be the next mayor of New York City when the November election. That's Zohran Mamdani. You see him there in the video. He is an avowed socialist. When he first won his assembly seat back in the summer of 2020, the New York Times tweeted, they were tweets back then, said there's a new progressive representing Astoria, Queens, which is the part of New York City that he is from or is living in. And he tweeted back at them and said, stop calling me a progressive. I'm a socialist. And back then he was running on defund the police, etc. He didn't say
Global
defund the
Intifada.
Well, that's this time around,
Does he know
right?
what that is exactly?
Oh, I think he knows exactly what it is, sure.
So we want October 7th type things to happen here, and so...
Michelle, I heard somebody this morning, I think it was the...
They didn't address it, but it was said, and that's important. It was said. Boomers see this, it was said.
managing editor of Bloomberg saying that he has reached out to Jewish leaders in New York City.
He
and
has.
says that he wants to work with them. He's just pro-Palestine. What do you make of that? What do you think that means?
So, yes, he's absolutely reached out more than we have seen other members of the Democratic Socialists.
Very recently?
Very recently. But make no mistake, when you look at the Democratic Socialists, and you can go to their website and look it up, and their stronghold is New York City, they support the BDS movement, the boycott and defund. They prohibit people from traveling to Israel. If they're going to be a member of the party, they won't get the endorsement. So, this was a big issue in New York City. It was, where did you stand on the state of Israel and its existence?
So when you look at a map, though,
it wasn't an issue. It was made an issue, which is important to make that distinction, and it is still being made an issue, which is very important to consider as well.
and you start to then project out into where we'll be a couple months from now. The business community, as we learned yesterday when Kathy Wild was here, I think her phrase was terrified. The feeling is terrifying. How do you think that I imagine the business community, of whatever you believe that means, will try to rally either around Cuomo, or do they try to rally around Adams? I don't know. And then the second question is,
I think our stream went down there, but I think it's back.
Is that can something like that actually work, insofar as clearly there is a group of people, a lot of people in this city, but the question is how many of them really who both like him and maybe not like them.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So let's clarify for the viewers, because you mentioned Andrew Cuomo. He lost the Democratic primary.
Right.
So why are we talking about him in the general? Because New York State has this particular election law where you can have another line on the ballot. So he has another line on the ballot. Andrew Cuomo will be on the ballot in November under a different party called the Fight and Deliver Party. This is a very common practice to have several lines, so you can walk in and vote for your choice of a candidate, sometimes on 3 or 4 different parties.
It's a stupid system.
I don't judge it. I just live in this world. And so the current mayor of New York City, who clearly didn't think he could win the Democratic primary, also has a line. So we're going to have 4 people on the ballot in November. The question is, you can have a line on the ballot, but are you going to run? So Andrew Cuomo said last night he was going to look at the numbers and decide what he's going to do. He's already raised a ton of...
Very strategic, very smart. Very strategic. As I've said, if Cuomo and Silva drop out and go behind Adams, could win. And there is precedent, as they mentioned, with Bloomberg winning as an independent.
Money. And the question is, can you raise that many millions more after having lost the Democratic primary? We'll wait and see what the business community does, what former Mayor Bloomberg does. We have a Republican, a perennial candidate, Curtis Sliwa, who's going to be on the Republican line. This is a city that is quite, anti-Republican, so I don't think he's going to have much of a shot, but we'll see. What I will say is that the betting markets do think that the person who picks up the most gain from this is the current mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. But let's see a few polls.
But what do the betting markets say?
Right now, that's 75% that Zohran is the mayor of New York City. It's early. Remember, it was less than a week ago that they thought Cuomo was in the lead, right? Until the last poll came out, and that's when the betting markets
Is there
switched.
a wild card, dark horse, somebody who could emerge and get themselves?
That's not accurate. It's not because of the poll. It's because someone knew something. That's why the betting markets switched. They always switch because of that. But good attempt.
Still on a ballot that we don't know about?
No, that ballot is set. That ballot is set.
Okay.
We know what
Train
the ballot
left the
is.
station there.
Train has left the station.
Are you?
Well, you know.
Do you have a hat to throw there? I mean, you've got a platform that's similar to his, that you ran on, that you said free things, right?
When he was in the city council.
You're well known.
You think I got a shot?
I'm ready to. I don't live here, but I'm ready to consider. You know what?
You be my comptroller. Becky's going to
controller. No, but you know what? I don't want to go here, but Gotham. Have you seen what Batman is up against in Gotham, and what the guy running for mayor is up against? That's what it reminds me of. They're taking Wall Streeters and making them walk out onto the ice in the East River.
Genius. That's really, really good. That's great rhetoric to elicit images of a popular movie franchise that's based in New York, that's recent, that younger people are going to see, the finance bros are going to see. Genius. Nigel says Zohran Mamdani is getting deported. I would put a probability of that to be very low, but depends on how strict the Trump administration goes with deportations. But yeah, it's a possibility. I don't think it's a probability. Audio Vibe says it's so cringe. Batman, seriously? Hey, it works. It's good. You knew that it was Batman 3, right? Dark Knight Rises. Smart.
Yeah. And hope, and then they fall through.
Yep.
I mean, there is a class warfare that's going.
So what's happened here, I think, is
the rich type.
There's a division within the Democratic Party in New York City and New York State, and it's emblematic of the division that we see nationally. How far left does the Democratic Party want to go?
In Chicago,
it wasn't a winner in the national.
Of all people, the Chicago Tribune tried to save New York from itself. And
the New York Times told voters not to vote for the socialists.
Think about
The New York Times said yesterday.
The New York Times did not say that. They said to vote for Lander. They did not say not to vote for Mamdani. They said don't vote for Cuomo implicitly, but they did not say not to vote for Mamdani. Audio says, okay, I guess. Yeah, I'm telling you. This Batman stuff sounds silly, but these people are smart. They're not stupid. They're bringing up evocative images that everyone remembers, what was his name? Crane having people have to walk out onto the ice.
Said his joyful campaign brought new voters into the fold.
Yes, but then they said, please don't rank him on the ballot. They said they weren't going to endorse anybody, and then they said, because
Kathy Hochul did not endorse anybody, and I wonder if she's regretting that now.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So you are all in on Cuomo? Is that
I was all in on Cuomo. Yes,
you were
I
all
was.
in, right?
Yes,
And you still
yes. I'm a registered Democrat.
Nigel says Zohran Mamdani is influenced by AIPAC. AIPAC controls both parties. Mamdani won't be around in November 2025 to be voted on. AIPAC will ensure that. While I understated AIPAC's influence before because I didn't think it was that important, that could be the case that they take him off the ballot. It'd be very, very tough to do now that he's secured the nomination. But I see where you're coming from. I do see it, and I think it should be a concern for Zohran voters. That he could be taken off somehow. Dirty tricks are the specialty of politics.
I'm a centrist Democrat in New York City that has been trying to push back the left. Not very successfully, I've noticed.
So I just wonder how. So why did Catherine Wild say that Adams she thinks he's going to end up being mayor?
Well, it's possible. It's possible that if there's enough voters out there who say, okay, they don't want somebody that, because now in the general you get a lot more centrist Democrats, right? Who comes out in the primary? Hardcore voters, mostly the hardcore left. When you see the turnout.
The problem is if you have both Adams and Cuomo running, do they split that vote?
Then you split the ticket. Yes.
Right. It is a different group of people. I mean, to the question you asked me before the show began, you said, did you vote yesterday? And I said I didn't vote. because I'm actually not a Democrat. I know you laughed at that.
I
I'm not a
I think
registered Democrat.
it was more of a chortle.
So I was not voting.
More than a chortle. I got
you were a
it.
registered
I got
independent. You were, okay,
Correct.
but here's what you have to understand. In New York City, that doesn't mean you're an independent. It means you're a member of the Independent
I
Party,
understand
which
that.
is an actual
I
party.
understand that, but the point, though, is that there's a lot of people in the city who didn't vote yesterday.
Because they couldn't.
Because they couldn't.
Okay.
And therefore, where this all lands later
is
a
normal
different
turnout
story.
in the mayoral election? It's piddly. It's piddling, isn't it? What is it?
You're talking about the general?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very high. It is piddly. I was so
It's going to be high because they're going to make it high. Nigel says, thanks for the feedback. No problem, man. I think that's a good point because that's what I keep talking about. Scandals that can and will come up. You don't know what they have on their books to use against him or to make up against him. And if it's embarrassing enough, he could step back.
Focused on last night's numbers. We got 1 million voters last night, which is very, very high. So I think it's going to be high.
But normally it's like less than a million people elect a mayor, don't
it's very small.
they?
Yeah. It's out of 8.8 million people.
All right. Remember, I'm not telling you guys to not be confident, to not fight, but I'm just telling you.
Welcome to the pain zone. It's where we live.
Accept the pain. Smile at the pain.
That's what any Zohran supporter has to do. You are in the pain zone. This is politics, and it's going to get worse. Now, I wanted to play a part here of Olivia Reingold, who we've seen on other streams covering this election. And this portion here was interesting because this goes towards the anti-Semitism angle of attack that they're going to use against him. This is from the Free Press, which no judgment on them, but Barry Weiss is a avowed... she cares about Israel, right? She cares about that issue. And so it's interesting to see what an influential new media, even though it's probably funded by billionaires, the Free Press is doing here in terms of their criticism. So I just wanted to play the snippet here where they're talking about the Israel issue.
But one issue, and this is fascinating, is he's probably the most anti-Israel. Assuming he gets elected, he'll be the most
Israel. I think from his perspective, if he were speaking freely, he'd go, Israel.
Obviously, it's going to be more radical because this is a publication that really cares about Israel. Nigel says, Mamdani is Indian diaspora born in Uganda. This is going to end badly for Zohran. Going up against the AIPAC Foundation, dead man walking 100%. I understand exactly where you're coming from, man. And I am not totally inclined, but I'm inclined to believe that you make some good points. And I'm not saying this to get Zohran people unenthusiastic. I'm just saying you have to be ready for what they're going to throw at you because you're completely right. Whether it's AIPAC or it's something else, if they don't want him, this is going to end bad for him. It could end bad for him. I would put that at a 10% probability at this moment. 10% is high. It's not a little. It's high. There's a chance he wins. There's a chance he loses. There's a chance that he gets completely screwed. And I agree with you. Whether it's AIPAC or something else, they can get him. That is a good point, man. I'm glad you're bringing it up because it can be so embarrassing that it can end your whole career. And like you said, he's an immigrant. Who knows what they can do? But dirty tricks, especially right now, it's not bad. Realistic, you do have to be realistic. But again, I hope that they prepared for this, mostly just because it'd be good to get the Democratic guard out, the old guard, for everyone. But you're right. Nigel says, exactly, U.S. politics, games, favors, and backroom deals created and existed long before Zohran was born, way back in 1991. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I was talking about with Grizz, is that they have a lot up their sleeve. And especially, like you mentioned, an immigrant. If you're an immigrant to this country, they know your whole life. Your whole life. If you became a citizen after 9/11, they know everything about you. Every single thing. Everything. And that's why you have to be realistic and you have to know what you're doing if you're doing this. Does he know what he's doing? We don't know yet. We have to see the performance. But I'm glad you bring those points up. They're good points.
So, talk to me about his anti-Israel stance, his anti-Zionist stance, because there's a lot of kind of mainstream Democratic and also some Republican discussion of like, well, we don't like the war in Gaza. We have criticisms of Bibi Netanyahu's government. But Zohran takes that a good deal further. And this is something that you've reported a lot on. So I want to hear about that.
So I would say within the spectrum of anti-Israel advocacy, there's, like you mentioned, there are people who criticize certain policies of Israel, and then there's the very far kind of militant, like I'm willing to actually, possibly I'm kind of like a homegrown terrorist. Zohran is really part of this ideological, very academic wing of the movement, where by his assumption, Israel is just a completely illegitimate endeavor. I have found a few clips of him referring to Israel's war against Hamas as a genocide. And so this is kind of a boilerplate position, but I have a lot of questions about the reality of where he actually stands on this. I have guesses. I think in his mind, anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are totally different things. And that raises a lot of questions for me, because one thing he said that he wants to do is to increase funding of the hate crimes task force by 800%. And so I have a lot of questions about what that would look like, because if you are a mayor who considers anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism to be completely distinct things, what is going to happen if, say, a Jew, someone rips a Star of David necklace off of a Jew's neck and says, "You're a dirty, 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 dirty Zionist"? Like, would that?
This is genius. This is a genius approach that they're doing here to attack Zohran. Nigel says Zohran became a U.S. citizen in 2018. Anyone who became a citizen after the Patriot Act, it's very important because of that. You're completely right. And not even 24 hours. This is going to be brutal. Dude, this was released. Oh, wait, I have it here today. And the comments are off 11 hours ago. This is going to be brutal. And this is so smart, because the reality is, if someone snatches your chain, that's robbery and assault. And if they call you an insult, it shouldn't make a difference for the legal prosecution. And he's put himself in that hole by advocating the hate crime thing. And now she's using it against him. This is the smartest attack I've seen on that issue, of the anti-Semitic issue that they're bringing up. That's so smart, because that's what they're saying. They're saying, hey, this guy, he says he wants to protect us, but how can he protect us when we're getting robbed and assaulted if he's not going to prosecute them for a hate crime? Genius opposition move. Smartest I've seen, and I'm sure more people are going to pick up on this. Nigel says this is laying down the groundwork. Absolutely. Preemptive. Absolutely. He did, and it's not our fault. Not sure what you mean there about whose fault, but yeah, this is genius. Rheingold is smart in throwing every angle. This is a genius angle to attack him on. It's so good, and this is the problem with politics. So you can say whatever you want in the primaries, and then they're going to take every little thing you said, and they're going to use the worst way of using it. It's really, really smart. They just want to ensure that the Jewish community in Israel are protected, not the rest. I'm not sure if that's exactly the case. But for whatever reason, whatever it is, because we've seen the socialist attack, the anti-Islam attack, the Jewish community attack, the anti-Semitism attack. Clearly, a lot of people in the establishment do not want this guy. It could be whatever reason, but yeah, whatever they want to ensure, they can do it with this. Collecting sound bites from Boom Day. Yep. These are great strategy here.
A hate crime of sorts, or if you have a mayor who considers anti-Zionism to be actually the stance of principled progressives. Is that actually justice at work?
I would hope that he would stop short of endorsing or allowing physical assault.
Yes.
But I do want to get into a tweet. This is from October 8,
right.
2023. It's the day after the October 7th Hamas massacre in Israel, and I want to refer to this tweet. This is how it begins. I mourn the hundreds of people killed across Israel and Palestine in the last 36 hours.
Right.
Then immediately, Netanyahu's declaration of war, the Israeli government's decision to cut electricity to Gaza, and Knesset members calling for another Nakba will undoubtedly lead to more violence and suffering in the days and weeks to come. The path towards a just and lasting peace can only begin by ending the occupation and dismantling apartheid.
And you can't delete this stuff, man. It's going to be there for the whole 4 months. And while this may sound like a measured statement to a lot of people, to the people who have strong views on this conflict, which, I mean, you know, it's not what I follow very closely. But the people who have strong views are going to see this and they're going to think something.
Again, that is just as the dust clears, as the smoke clears in Israel after October 7th. And it's a rather stunning statement. And these were things that he was saying, I believe, outside Columbia University.
And what's smart here is that, because Nigel mentioned that it's because of the Israel issue, is that bringing this home by saying, oh, you're not going to persecute hate crimes because of what you're saying, makes it a local issue. Because that was my misunderstanding I had of bringing up Israel. I was like, what is the point of bringing up Israel here? But the point is that now they can bring it home. They can say, oh, you said you were going to tackle hate crimes. Well, how are you going to do that? Because you said that you don't view anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism as the same thing. Very, very smart.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in the days immediately after October 7th. Is that correct?
Okay, I am pulling this up because I've got to look at this. I mean, I've read this a zillion times, but for some reason, perhaps because of last night's victory, it's just hitting me in a different way. I mean, it is a shocking statement that only applies scrutiny to Israel. And importantly, there is no mention of Hamas. And, you know, so a lot of
They can get you for what you didn't mention. That's so smart. So smart. All right. And this here was the clip where we saw how Trump attacked him. Interesting. We have our other story. But before that, for all the Zohran supporters, do not give up hope. But just remember.
Welcome to the pain zone. It's where we live.
Accept the pain. Smile at the pain. Embrace the pain.
You need to love pain.
Pain is the only way to change.
Keep driving through the goddamn pain. Muscle through the pain.
Just shut up and let me enjoy this pain.
Pain is there to ask you one simple question. Do you really want to achieve your goals? Or are you just a talker?
You have, if you're in politics, it is going to be painful. It's going to fucking hurt. It's going to hurt what they're going to do to your guy here. It is going to be excruciating. It is going to be terrible. Can you lift 2 plates? I can't. I got in close, but I can't. It hurts, man. It hurts trying to get there. And it's hard, okay? And you have to love this shit. Zohran supporters have to fucking love this if they want to win. They have to love it. This is the real test. If you can pass this test and win, you did something that is insane. You did something that should not have happened. And you should be very happy with that. With that, let's move on here to our story about the new ICE facility that's potentially being built in Florida.
Out of Florida, where federal officials have claimed they are days away from opening what they're calling Alligator Alcatraz. It's a massive immigrant detention center. It's in the middle of the Everglades. CBS News correspondent Chanel Call has been looking into this new detention center, joining us now. So what do we know so far?
Well, Jules, we know this immigration detention center is about 45 miles west of downtown Miami. And I want to show you what it looks like. It's been named, as you mentioned, Alligator Alcatraz by Florida's Attorney General James Othmeyer. And this is because this big chunk of land that you see here is surrounded by mosquito, python, and alligator-filled swamplands. Here is Othmeyer talking about the detention center in a video that he posted to X last week.
People get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide.
So the administration's idea here, Jules, is essentially to build sort of a compound of heavy-duty tents, trailers, and temporary buildings, similar to those that you see normally.
Audio Vibe says Alligator Alcatraz was actually one of the worst things I've seen from the news in a while. It does sound pretty cool, though. That alliteration is crazy. Alligator Alcatraz.
They're used during natural disasters.
So what is the timeline and who is funding all of this?
Yeah, so Florida's Attorney General is saying that this facility will hold about 5,000 immigration detention beds by early July. So really, we could be just days away from opening. We're also told it'll cost about $245 each bed per day, or about $450 million a year to run. Florida says it will foot the bill. The plan here, though, Jules, is for them to then be largely reimbursed by FEMA through its $625 million shelter and service program fund. But I do want to...
DeSantis is the worst fucking governor the state has had, and we had Rick Scott. It's just terrible, man.
Mentioned, Jules, there is some level of controversy around this plan. Some Democrats and activists, they've come out and condemned the program, with several hundred gathering outside the property gates on Sunday protesting this detention center. All right.
So I'm opposed to this. I think it doesn't matter what I think, right? It's going to get done if it gets done. I'm opposed to any of these new agencies made after 9/11, DHS, ICE. All of these agencies are bad. They need to go regardless of how you feel about what they're doing. They're not good agencies. They just serve to subvert and hurt the American people more, no matter how much you hate illegal immigrants. If you do, ICE is not a good agency to have. Neither is DHS. They're bad. Audio Vibe says, and that's very telling considering our current political climate. Yep, very telling. Stay out of the Big Cypress. Yeah, we're going to get into that. And the name is funny. The idea is terrible. Yeah, I get you. Nigel says, Leo, I acknowledge the Shoah, 6 million lost, and medical experiments, another Shoah 3 times larger, never gets mentioned, 20 million Chinese slaughtered by the Japanese. Oh, the Nanking massacre. Yeah. I don't think the Shoah has much to do with this race, but yeah, the Nanking massacre is not talked about very much. But there was a book that they wrote about it that was full of like fraudulent stuff, so I understand why it's not really talked about. Also, communism has kind of gone over that period of history for China. So yeah, both of those were terrible events. Absolutely, they were terrible, and they hurt a lot of innocent people. Yeah, World War II was just a tragedy all around. It's just terrible. But yes, so they're building this Alligator Alcatraz for people that never know. For people that don't know, this is thanks to one of the more underrated presidents in American history, Richard Nixon. We do not have anything built in the Big Cypress in the Everglades because he was actually going to build an airport, which was partially built for Concords and supersonic planes. But Richard Nixon actually built the EPA, which you may not like them, but the EPA has done a lot of good too. And the EPA said that this would destroy the Everglades, so he canceled it, and that's where they want to build it. So that's one of the main reasons I'm opposed to this, because this may destroy the Everglades. It's really, really stupid to do this because the Everglades bring in a lot of money to Florida. It's a very cool environment. If you haven't visited, highly recommend it. And Nigel says, yeah, you never hear the Chinese play the victim card. Chinese people hate Japan, though. They really do. So, yeah, I guess you don't hear about this very often, but they hate Japan. I asked a Chinese student once that I was studying with, I was like, what do you think? Do you hate Japan? And they were like, no, I hate the concept of Japan, but I have no problem with the Japanese people. So pretty hardcore in that sense. Nigel says Nixon cemented India and USSR relationship in December 1971. Yeah. I mean, Kennedy played a big part in that too when he opposed the Indian actions in Goa because they were probably wrong. I would say they were wrong what they did there in invading Goa. But China, Korea, and Japan have thousands of years of history. Absolutely, China, Korea, and Japan have thousands, and everyone that's not Japan hates Japan, which is if you talk to them, that's why the East Asian category in the U.S. makes a little sense to me because I visited China and they don't see themselves as Japanese. That's for sure.
Tonight, construction is underway deep in the Florida Everglades on a massive migrant detention camp that state officials are calling Alligator Alcatraz. Starting next month, 5,000 migrants will be housed in trailers and heavy-duty tents at this remote abandoned airfield.
As I call it, Alligator Alcatraz.
In a promotional video set to music, Florida's Attorney General lays out what he considers a deterrent for any...
This is who DeSantis has put in power. These people, just sycophants. I don't... Do you know how much home insurance is in Tampa, in Miami, in Sarasota, in fucking Ocala, and we're building Alligator, Alcatraz. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid.
Potential escapees.
People get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons.
But some local officials warn the environmental impact could be devastating.
We have environmental.
This woman is a liar and terrible too. Okay, don't trust her on anything. She's terrible. This is our mayor. So bad. Nigel says Portuguese still wanting to keep Goa. Yeah, but I just don't think that India went about it the right way. I agree with Kennedy's criticism of how they did it. Because the Chinese didn't do that in Macau, you know. The most comparable thing is what they did in Hong Kong, but, you know, that was several years removed. Asia's so huge. Asia's huge, man. I really want to visit more Asian countries. I loved my experience in China. China's one of the coolest places I've been in my life. And the pretext to internment camps coming soon by FEMA. Absolutely. Even if you are a Republican or against illegal immigration, I'm not a fan of illegal immigration. These ICE facilities, Empire comes home every time, man. They're going to come towards you. So it's just stupid.
And fiscal stewardship and safety concerns.
The Trump administration has said it wants to get up to 100,000 beds at detention centers across the country to facilitate mass deportations.
A lot of bad people were let into our country. We're getting them out, and we're getting them out fast.
The Department of Homeland Security says the new facility will cost about $450 million a year and will be reimbursed in large part by a FEMA program previously used to shelter migrants in places like this hotel in New York City.
Yeah, and this hotel, the Roosevelt, as I mentioned last night, they were reimbursing the Pakistani government because the Pakistani airline owns the Roosevelt. So it's just crap. It's just crap. Stupid. Nigel says removing colonialism, USA set the standard back in 1776. Come on. Yeah, that's an argument. I won't fight you too hard on it. I just think that Salazar was an interesting politician. His land reform program was probably the best executed. So I just think they could have worked something out. I think Salazar would have agreed to something, you know? And you say, wait, what? If you're talking about the Pakistani airline, that was crazy when I learned. I learned it a few months before everyone else started covering it, and they didn't even cover it that much. It was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, PIA owns this hotel. The U.S. government was paying PIA to house people who were illegal immigrants, if you want to take it that way, or just in the process in another, to house them. That's insane.
Do you think that this is a good idea for your home state?
Well, I 100% support the president's deportation efforts. It's the president's priority to get those individuals out of our country.
But immigrant advocates argue the money has not been set aside by Congress, and
the biggest concern is the grave inhumanity that seems to be at stake in terms of sending people to...
Nigel's saying that this is news. Let's look it up. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. Pakistan owns the Roosevelt Hotel. No, it's not owned by the Pakistani government. While PIA did lease the Roosevelt Hotel in 1979, they acquired full ownership in 2000. So yeah, it's the Pakistani government. Like, this is just ridiculous, dude. It's just ridiculous. Like, they do own it. And that's what the government was paying for. They weren't even paying it to an American. It's just wild.
To incredibly inhumane, brutal conditions.
An administration official tells NBC News that ICE currently has nearly 60,000 detainees in custody, a record.
So what I also dislike about this idea is that what people don't talk about, one of the big failures of the BLM movement in my mind is I don't like prison. I think prison is a horrible institution. I don't think it should exist. I think we should have jail, exile, and execution. Okay, that's what I believe. I know it's radical because I am a prison abolitionist from another angle. And I just think that prisons in Florida, while they're not that bad in regards to race relations, anywhere that's not California is not bad. They're pretty good here. The prisons in Florida are bad. They're not good for people that go in them. And you're building something out in the swamp, which is going to destroy the environment. But besides that, they don't have air conditioning in Florida prisons, you know? And that's what bothered me about BLM is that they were, you know, focusing on black Americans. That's a prerogative. But by absolute numbers, there are so many more white Americans in prison. And those people matter too. And if you really wanted to bring people together to bring some form of criminal justice reform, you'd have to include them in the conversation because they're not doing well in those prisons either. If you read about Florida prisons, it gets extremely hot. People die. People are old. They don't do well there. And you're going to build a new one while you haven't repaired the old ones. It's just offensive. Nigel says, why is it saying it's not owned at the start? Oh, man, I honestly don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I didn't go down the rabbit hole all the way. I don't know why they didn't own it at the start. But I assume it's because it was before foreign investment was really common in New York. But yeah, PIA owns the fucking Roosevelt Hotel.
CBS 12 News this morning.
This is just giving you the history I already gave you guys. I just think it'd be funny to include here, and this would not be out of character for DeSantis if you have followed him, because apparently he was a person who was involved in enhanced interrogation techniques at Gitmo. Florida, in case you don't remember, because people don't tend not to remember these things, but I remember.
Governor Ron DeSantis doesn't talk much about his time as a JAG officer at Guantanamo Bay, and that might be because detainees at the prison say that he was personally involved in torture that they experienced. Okay, first of all, this is a bigger story than the DeSantis part of it. DeSantis, if you take, we beat on DeSantis every week, every week, but here he was a JAG officer. He was looking through a fence. He was trying to say these are standards that we have to follow. It was force feeding. Force feeding is not, under all the treaties is not torture. But I mean the attack.
We're defending force feeding. Come on
him. It's just going to be a pile-up attack. This is just one of them. Give me your take on it. I think this is a bigger story than DeSantis
So that's what's important. DeSantis was possibly a torturer, but definitely stationed at Gitmo. So it's not out of character to build the Alligator Alcatraz here. God, I fucking hate this guy. This guy has destroyed this state in a lot of ways. Just terrible, bringing in a bunch of people that don't care about this state. But whatever, So it's not out of character to bring in an ICE facility here. I think it'd be interesting to watch this here. Nigel says, waterboarding another stain in humanity, only being 5% effective, providing legit intel. The rest was just said to stop the pain. Absolutely. And that's why one of my favorite movies, even though it's political propaganda, is Zero Dark 30, makes a huge flaw in saying that it was effective. It was not effective. It was not. It was a crap program that was... it did not... KSM was literally counting down the seconds that were legally required for them to stop waterboarding. Okay, because he was smart. So yeah, that was a huge stain. It was disgusting that it was approved, but it, they used it and they pretended it worked for a long time, even though it didn't. So here, this is an underrated story, the story of Orlando Buquete, which is very interesting. This is a guy. There's a National Geographic documentary about him that's so cool. I couldn't find it. I would play it if I could find it. Who was imprisoned for murder, I believe, in Florida. And he wasn't guilty. He actually was not guilty and escaped prison for like decades out of Florida. And his story of how he escaped is so interesting. And this is just to give you an idea of how bad prison is in Florida, that he had to escape, lived under an assumed name. Now, he was caught and he was acquitted because they had DNA evidence proving he was not the person who committed the crime. But he had to serve time in jail for escaping, which is just insane.
Practicaba deporte en Cuba, pero no correr larga distancia. El escaparme. Yo dije, tengo que correr bastante, tengo que ponerme en good shape, en buena forma, para poderme escapar. Había un sargento, me decía todos los días, boquete, lo decía bien, yo sé que tú te vas a ir un día. El día antes de yo irme, él me dijo eso y le dije, sí. Esta noche me voy a ir. Y se echó a reír y me fui. We jumped the thing in 20 seconds. I said, okay, I get out of here, I have to run. More running. At 66, I still running. Mi nombre es Orlando Boquete. Cubano. Estuve en la prisión por 13 años y 10 corriendo. Yo estaba viendo, era un mundial de fútbol. Iba a ir a la tienda a comprar el ton, a comprar cerveza, to buy beer. Yo entro al baño de la tienda. Yo salgo del baño. Yo veo 2 carros policía. Y cuando yo entro, pero los carros policía estaban como a 20 pies casi de la tienda. Cuando yo salgo, me llaman la policía. Y yo voy. Y cuando yo me acerco, me tiran para el carro. Yo no vi a nadie, ni nada. Yo nada más que lo que vi, ya me pusieron y me pusieron handcuff y me llevaron preso. Me metieron para un carro de policía y me llevaron preso. Cuando yo llego allá, yo no hablaba inglés, I don't speak no English, nothing. Soy cubano, refugiado del Mariel. Tomé la decisión de venir porque no me gustaba el sistema de Cuba. Pero voy a regresarme. Eso fue algo bien duro. Y me tuve que separar de mi familia. Nunca vi a mi mamá, a mi hermana mayor. Pero bueno, aquí estoy y ese soy yo.
Really quick here, Nigel says you can't break the law to prove your innocence. I get that, but dude, imagine spending more than a decade in prison and you know you're innocent. That's crazy. I don't even know what I'd do. I mean, escaping's pretty hard nowadays, but man, dude, I'd be pretty tempted to escape. You know, in Norway and stuff, they don't punish you for escaping because they say that it's the natural human instinct. That's pretty wild to punish you for when you're innocent. You know, like if you're innocent, you get desperate. You know, you're scared of the courts and stuff. You have something against you. He was a Marielito, very discriminated against community in Florida at the time. Pretty wild.
Cuando me dieron los 50 años, la cabeza hizo así, boom, se me cayó. Y me tuvieron que agarrar, dejar tu grab en mí. Cuando yo fui para la celda, ningún otro preso podía hablar conmigo. Yo estaba como loco. Se te va el mundo. Yo voy a ser libre. Y yo voy a demostrar que yo soy inocente. I wrote to Innocent Project in Spanish. An Innocent Project from New York, they sent to me.
All right, so there they just go into the DNA and how they proved that he wasn't the guy that they thought. But if you watch the Nat Geo doc, it's so cool how he did it because he had to escape what they're trying to do with this new prison. He had to escape a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it was crazy what he had to do. It was just freaking wild, man. Pretty crazy stuff. So, highly recommend you watch the doc, guys. I don't know where you can find it. Nigel says, government's judicial systems have qualified immunity. Burden of proof is 500-fold on you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially in a federal trial. I don't think this was a state trial, obviously, but yeah, man, people don't appreciate how much that is. The judicial system is stacked against you. People think the Soviet Union was ridiculous. Trying to beat a federal charge in the United States. I think we just end here with some humor here from one of the funniest mayors to ever be elected.
Everyone knows that New York City is the Athens of America. It's the Istanbul of America. It's the Kyiv of America. It's the soul of America. We are the Tel Aviv of America. New York City is the Islamabad of America. The Zagreb of America. We are the Lima of America. New York City is Mexico City of America. This is the Dublin of America, New York City. Everyone knows.
The funniest. This is a clip I hadn't seen of him before. Nigel says there are stories we don't know of. Leo, I think of the thousands that never get told. Absolutely, man. That's why I hate prison as a concept. It just doesn't make sense to me. You're just putting people in there to get worse. And the ones that are in are guilty. It's just scary, man. It's sad. It's sad. We are the Sydney of America. The thing is, I think I get what he's saying, which is that, like, what he's saying is that we're the real capital, right? But it'd be more like saying we are the Sucre of America, because Bolivia has two capitals, a financial capital. So I guess they are the Sydney of America. Come on, I'm Australian, include me. I bet he said it, man. I bet he said it. But this was the funniest
When
here.
you look at the totality of the year, if you had to describe it, and it's tough to do, in one word, what would that word be, and tell me why?
New York. This is a place where every day you wake up, you could experience everything from a plane crashing into our trade center to a person who's celebrating a new business that's open. This is a very, very complicated city, and that's why.
So fucking, I love him. That's so funny, man. Like, that's crazy. How do you come up with that? My favorite moment, have to go back to it. Are you stupid? Was the best. That was so funny. Every time I'm having a bad day, Yeah, Nigel says, what the fuck? He really said that. It's so funny, man. It's so funny. He needs to be stopped. No, please don't stop him, audio. He's so funny.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes were asking me to step down. God, forgive them. Are you stupid? So
the greatest to ever do it, man. That's amazing. So funny, man. Nigel, did he bring 9/11 to the front? Yeah, he did. The greatest to ever do. Audio saw it in pocket. Dude, I love, again, I've said it before, a politician asking people if they're stupid is the funniest thing. So let's end on a funny note. He needs to get a Netflix special. Absolutely. He's so funny. All right. For all the Zohran supporters, I'm going to play it one last time. Please like, comment, subscribe, everyone. I appreciate it. Are you stupid? Please like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate it, guys. You don't even have to hit the bell. It takes half a second. Just subscribe. And for any Zohran supporters, this is the attitude you need. You need to fucking love it if you're going to win.
Welcome to the pain zone. It's where we live.
Accept the pain. Smile at the pain. Embrace the pain.
Absolutely. All you Zohran supporters, if you want to win, you have to be ready for everything. You have to be training for this. You have to love it. You have to live it. Oh, they just called Zohran a pedophile. Oh, they just called Zohran a terrorist. Oh, they just called Zohran a racist. You have to love it. You have to love it. Otherwise, you're not going to win. You're not going to win, man, unless you fucking love it, because they love it. They love it. And you have the betting markets on your sides right now. But remember, this doesn't mean much. You have to love whatever they throw at you. All right, everyone. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the chatters. Nigel, Grizz, Abdicta, Audio. You guys are the best. Appreciate you guys. Nigel says, get ready for waterboarding Zohran supporters. Dude, if they get called terrorists, I mean, people were called terrorists after Jan 6. People, what did Biden say? You know, every MAGA person was a terrorist or something like that. It was a pretty wild statement. Never seen that before. Nigel, bye, Leo. See you next time. See you guys. See all you guys. Please like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you guys, and see you for the next stream.